Hello, Lou Hamilton from Audible Elegance of Cincinnati, Ohio. My store is located on Montgomery Road, a couple doors north of the original Montgomery Inn and across the street from Montgomery Cyclery. We have a web page. I do a monthly blog, and that one's kind of special this month, and it explains the background that you get to see here. And we also do work on Facebook, X, and Instagram. And the website is www.audibleelegance.com. To explain the background a little bit, I am currently in a step-down unit of the Cleveland Clinic, where my wife has been for nearly a month. As I wrote about, we were looking at the potential of a heart transplant. Tomorrow, she's going to go down to the intensive care unit where they really start pushing that edge, and her case is going to be submitted to committee for future consideration for a transplant, and we'll learn more then. So that's that. That's the table we're cleared. I want to talk about audio connections, and this was triggered by an individual who was asking me about certain connections, the cables they should use, and he's a bit more on the budget side, and he talked about buying some bulk cable of a brand that I'm not familiar with, so I have no comment on that. And then he was going to get some fairly inexpensive RCAs with that were gold plated. And the RCA connector itself is probably one of the least appropriate connectors anymore for audio. You have to understand that the RCA plug was actually invented by RCA in the 1930s, and its commercial applications began in the 1940s. So we're talking about a type of connection that didn't have anywhere near the scientific understanding then as we do now. And if that wasn't a problem enough, how the plugs are made and the quality of them is literally all over the map. Merely because it's quote-unquote gold-plated, well, that may help you against oxidation, and that's fine. However, gold-plated over nickel over steel is probably one of the worst-sounding plugs you can end up with. It really degrades the audio performance. And this was something that Julian Veriker, when he founded Name Audio, promptly stayed away from, and he was using 5-pin DIN connectors, which is, for audio purposes, a superior plug. However, most of the industry was pretty much married to RCA type plugs, and eventually, after Julian died, even Name Audio, conceded to using RCA plugs, even though sonically it is inferior to 5-pin DINs. Now, the other factor that is always an issue with RCA plugs is you're working from two different diameters. You have the diameter of, well, maybe four, let's put it that way. On the female chassis plug, you have the diameter of the outer ring, which is your ground, and also the socket to receive the male center pin of the cable itself. So you have the diameter of the receiver, and then you have the diameter of the plug itself, and of course you have the diameter of the outer area of the shield of the cable. And over 40 years, we have had innumerable clashes where the plugs don't fit, or the ground fits, but the center pin doesn't make contact. While there should be a standard for RCA plugs, I'm sure there is, don't be surprised if you run into that problem or have run into that problem, because people are all over the place with those diameters, and we've seen it. Some have gone so far as trying to make the grip really good, so even Monster came up with something called the turbine connector. Different manufacturers had where you could clamp it down and really, clamp to the ground. But a ground connection is one thing. The signal connection, which is the center pin, is an entirely different matter. So you're looking to get, ideally, a great center pin connection first, and then a good ground afterwards, not the reverse. So Name had used 5-pin DINs. When Mark Levinson was designing his equipment, he didn't like those either, and actually used a system known as K-Max, which were exceptional connectors, very, very expensive, and honestly, not easily terminated. You had to be dedicated and give it some time if you're going to do it right. So I wanted to go over some of the connectors first, and then get into the second part of the question, which was single-ended cables, in other words, two conductor cables versus a balanced cable. So a lot of single-ended cables are using RCAs. When you are using balanced cables, what do you know? You're not using RCAs, you're actually using a better connector, which is what's used in the recording industry as well. And you have typically a locking connector at that. And a balanced cable will involve the use of 3 wires. And the reason behind a balanced cable fundamentally is avoiding the chance of picking up electrical interference or noise. And the longer the run of the cable, the more important this becomes, because over that entire length you're exposed and can pick up electrical radiation in the house. If you're in New York City, the whole area is just electrified beyond belief. I've had some customers there that just literally can't get noise out of anything because of the level of electrical activity. And you also have to remember that CD players and digital devices also radiate essentially noise. So there's a real reason behind balanced cables, especially on longer runs. So you've got noise rejection, and you've got a better connector than what you typically find on RCA plugs, and certainly some of the single-ended cables are shielded very well. Some put a braided shield and ground it out with one of the conductors at the receiving end, which is the way to do it, not the transmitting end. That's why sometimes you'll see them as directional, and that's what it's all about, is grounding out the noise. So I just wanted to cover plugs. I mean, if you're a DIY person and you want to build your own cables, that's fine, have fun. I mean, it's a hobby. But beware that if you're buying, a 4-pack for like $8, there's a really high probability that you're getting a gold over nickel, and that's over steel or anything else, and it's really not a good connector. So I just wanted to cover that for everyone, and happy hobby. Thank you.